Hello, everyone, and welcome to a wonderful new episode of the StudioMEcast. I am your host, and today we have another special guest. This is Bobby Moser, who's a director, producer. He does documentary work and commercials and music videos and all kinds of stuff. And we're just going to be talking about what he's been up to in film and video and see where the conversation goes. So, Bobby, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Peter. I'm super excited to be here and be a part of this podcast.
So before we start recording, and when you and I were chatting through email, I was talking with you about how you, a while back, you directed the Lindsay Stirling, Josh Groban, Muppets, Pure Imagination music video, and I saw that when it came out. I'm a Lindsay Stirling fan. I've been to at least one of her concerts. And I just had a friend on the podcast who has worked with the Jim Henson Company a lot as a production designer and set designer and stuff, and just in the art department and all that. But, when you were doing that music video, had you worked with the Jim Henson Company before? Was that the first time you got to meet Kermit and all them?
Yeah, that was my first time working with puppets. It was a very early professional project for me too. I kind of stumbled into it a little bit because I was working at a production company that at the time did all of Lindsay Stirling's music videos. So we were sort of her go-to production company. And then the Muppets wanted to do a collaboration with a bunch of YouTubers. So, she was working on this project with Josh Groban. They were doing a collaborative song together. And then the Muppets were, going to do this project. And then, so we became the production company that was going to produce it. And then, it was we just wrote a bunch of scripts, ideas we thought that she would like. And then we sent it to her, and she liked my script. I made it with a friend of mine named Dan Carr. Him and I wrote the script together, and that's kind of how it got started. But, I think it was maybe my second or third music video that I had ever made. It was kind of like a trip. It was a wild ride, and very exciting. Very stressful too. There's actually good stories from that shoot that I could share. It's like a really wild shoot because for a number of reasons. Partly due to lack of experience on my part, but also the day before the shoot, I got a call from Lindsay Stirling's manager saying that she was in the hospital, that she had been on tour and had kind of run her into the ground. She was exhausted. Because, I will say that Lindsay Stirling is every bit as awesome and hardworking and creative and cool as she seems. She's definitely one of the most creative, interesting people I've ever met. So if you're a fan of hers, you can rest easy that she's exactly as she promotes herself to be. She's not a celebrity that kind of is a little two-faced or whatever. But she basically worked so hard that she was in the hospital the night before we were supposed to shoot. So we were tasked with completely rewriting the script to not include her. So it was her music video with the Muppets. But we were supposed to somehow not have her in the video. She wasn't going to show up and shoot. So it was a 24-hour, super stressful, scary. We wrote this whole alternate script where she was slept through her alarm that we were going to shoot at a later date, and she was making her way through Los Angeles trying to make it to the shoot, and then the Muppets were all wow, we have no music video. And then, we got to set the morning, and she came in, and she looked super happy. She was really sickly, but was able to just, I don't know, suck it up and do it. And you can't tell at all in this footage.
No, not at all.
She's as soon as we call cut, she'd like sink,
Wow.
because she was so exhausted. But she was able to just turn it on and be awesome. Um, so yeah, I mean, it was a crazy shoot. And then working with the Muppets is crazy because there's like everything has to be like 5 feet above the ground. Everything, all the sets are constructed on these platforms that you have to be able to move around because they have to create lanes for the performers to be. And there has to be video monitors set up all over the ground so that they're able to, like, while they're performing with the Muppets, they can see their performance like on a video monitor.
Mm.
So we had to like hire a whole VTR team to help set up half a dozen monitors at any get for each and every shot. So uh, yeah, working with puppets and with the Jim Henson Company, like there's a lot of so much things happening behind the scenes that you don't really think about when you're watching it. But definitely such a pleasure. Like it was definitely a highlight of my film work. But it was pretty stressful at the time.
I bet. It's like so you didn't have a lot of music video experience, and you hadn't worked with directing music videos, and you hadn't worked with puppets. You went straight from that to Josh Groban, Lindsay Stirling, and the Muppets. It's like, did you feel like you were on a rocket with that or something? That's an incredible thing. And on top of all that, you pulled it off. It's a lovely video.
100%. And it felt like a runaway train, but it was really exciting because I've been a fan of the Muppets since I was a kid. Like I watched it with my dad growing up. And I actually had Kermit do a video for my dad because my dad he was actually going to come out and shoot, but then he got sick the night before as well and like couldn't fly. So he unfortunately couldn't be there to shoot. But so I asked Kermit if he could do a little like get well soon video for my dad. So he recorded that, and and he's just like, "Hey, ho, CD, I hope here you're not feeling well, and I understand." Like he had just had this super cute, hilarious message for my dad. That my dad still breaks out at parties, and he's like, "Look, this is my message from Kermit." Another funny story from that that I feel like I got to share is like, so all of the Muppet guys and the performers are basically mostly these men in their like 60s. They're just like doobie smoking, like Doobie Brother hippies who are like hilarious performers and have been doing it for decades. Like most of them are like, have been playing different Muppet characters for decades. And but one of them is like he's a relatively new guy, but he took over the mantle of Miss Piggy, and he they had told me I had a few meetings with like the writer and like a couple of the performers, and they said like you got to watch out for Miss Piggy, and I'm like, oh really? And they're like, yeah, Miss Piggy's like, I don't know how to put it, like she's pretty method. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then at one point, I got a some the one of the producers on the Muppet side came up to me and he's like, "Hey Bobby, Miss Piggy wants to have a meeting with you about the script." And I was like, "Oh, okay, sure." So I go into this conference room at the studio, and it's this huge conference room, with probably like 20 chairs in this conference room, and it's just me and the Muppets producer, and then the guy I forget his name, but he's the guy that plays Miss Piggy, and it's the three of us in this gigantic conference room, and I introduce myself, and he's just very like serious, which is weird because all the other guys are like, "Hey, what's up, man? Like, oh, nice to meet you. Like, oh, this is great." Like, he's like a very serious like businessman kind of thing. He's like, "Hi, nice to meet you." I'm like, "Hey." He's like, "I wanted to go through the script and talk about Miss Piggy's motivations." And in my head, I'm like, okay, I mean, Miss Piggy's kind of had the same motivation for like 50 years, you know, like she's jealous of everyone and loves Kermit, you know, like she like has to be the center of attention and she loves Kermit the Frog. Like that's it. That's her motivation, like since day one, you know.
Mhm.
But I'm like, okay, of course, yeah, let's go through it. And he's like, I'm like, all right, so in the first scene, Lindsay Stirling's putting on makeup, and then Kermit's saying hi, and you see her talking to Kermit, and he's like, wait, what am I feeling in this moment? And I'm like, well, I think you're like jealous to see Kermit with another woman, you know, because he's your frog, you know, like he's your man, you know. And he's like, okay, okay, I can work with that. And then he slowly raises his hand up as if he's like, you know, pantomiming the performance, you know, because they like stick their hand through the puppet,
Mhm.
and he's just like, "Hello, Miss Sterling. Who do you think you are?" And he like performs it like as Miss Piggy, and he like completely transforms into this like into Miss Piggy from this like you know serious man, and then he like performs the lines, and then he like slowly brings his hand down. Okay, we go to the next line. You know, and we went beat by beat. It probably was like an hour and a half meeting, and after every beat, he would like, you know, do a quick rehearsal, and it was just like one of the craziest like moments I've
That's a great
experienced.
story. That's like, and it's
Yeah,
oddly fitting for her character as well.
yeah, exactly. Wants to get it right, and very you know high maintenance.
Hmm. At first, when you said like you
Um,
went into a conference room with them, I thought you meant like I just imagined this really long table, and at the end of it, just like he's under the table and Miss Piggy's at the table. And I thought it was gonna be like you gotta have a meeting with her, but that,
it wasn't too far from that. It was
yeah,
kind of
it kind
it
of
was
was there. That's wow, that's fantastic. So, do you have a favorite Muppet, by the way?
I mean, I love Kermit. He's always been my guy. But also maybe Fozzie Bear. Um, you know, there's like a funny joke that I feel like no one really sees in it, where uh, in the beginning we actually use two Fozzie Bears, and like on the end of there's like a huge
Yeah,
cake,
the cake.
and then there's like one Fozzie Bear and one from the other. And like I don't know, it's kind of a subtle detail that you know you can only do in with the Muppets. That was pretty funny. But yeah, either Kermit or Fozzie Bear. Waka waka waka.
With the music video, there's a narrative element to it. You've got your script and all that, but you also you focus on. It seems to me, from what I've seen of your work, that you focus a lot on documentaries, which is a completely different
Mm-hmm.
wheelhouse. And do you have like do you want to do more short film narrative or feature film stuff, or is your heart really with documentary? What do you like to do the most?
I mean, I think I'm pretty eclectic with my what I want to do. I mean, I think documentary is kind of at the core of me and is definitely like my greatest like life passion. But I definitely really enjoy doing all kinds of things. Like I even do like little animations, and I've done a couple of animated things for friends, and um, painting, and um, you know, yeah, music videos, commercials. Even in commercials, like some things are going to be like real people, documentary style, and some are like much more stylized and like narrative driven. I don't really have a strong desire to do like feature narratives. But and I think you know I definitely lean towards documentary when it comes to like long form uh, work. But you know when it's like short form stuff, like you know kind of anything goes, and I'm really excited about whatever kind of comes my way. I think I'm a bit of like a Labrador, like whatever's like right in front of me is like seems really exciting.
So if you've got this eclectic taste and stuff and approach to your work and all, Is there something that you find unifies the kind of work you do?
Yeah, I think I guess there's sort of a sense of like celebration and like, I think there's a bit of like wholesomeness and like sort of recognizing and celebrating people. Um, I think that's at the core of everything. I think there's like, I always hope that there's like either a sense of like joy and beauty, or even if it's something more dramatic, you sort of feel like you're connecting to the human experience a little deeper. Which is why I think documentary in general, like, is a majority of my work, is because that's sort of, I think, like the easiest sort of access point for like capturing those kinds of moments. And yeah, yeah. I think like celebrating people would probably be like at the core of what I hope to do with my work in general.
Well, I definitely see that in the short documentary you did, Laurel Carlton and the Tijuana Bulls.
Oh yeah,
So, yeah, you did this short documentary that really exemplifies that. Are those your parents, by the way?
yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
I thought so.
Um,
Where did it's such a everything you said about celebrating life and people, I think I just feel is so wrapped up in that documentary where it's this couple going on a trip to Mexico and uh,
mhm.
what where did that come from? Were you just along for the ride and you started filming? Did you intend for it to be a documentary at the beginning? It's like how did you have you made documentaries with your parents before? Like how did it come about?
um, well, I was a friend of mine, Michael Barth, and we were just kind of thinking about, we just wanted to make a short film, and we're just thinking about ideas. And I think documentaries are best when you have like good access to the people that you're filming. And knew that my parents would, I think he brought up like the idea that my parents would be really good characters because they're just like, they just have a really funny rapport and they're always joking. And yeah, he just like really like thought, just thinks they're amazing. So we thought it'd be fun, like, to bring them someplace that felt very unusual, just to sort of see how they react and like see what happens there. So then, yeah, I talked to my parents about where we could go and decided on doing like a bullfight in Tijuana, um, because we felt like the contrast would be uh, very deep. And then I think there's also some very, very light elements of like, it being a border town and like border towns being like a very complicated space, and to kind of like bring my southern family, southern parents, to this, like border town, just kind of like see it, experience it, and try to see what happens. Like, because I think ultimately, the best way to understand a place is to go there and see it for yourself. And like, I don't think we were trying to make any kind of grand statement about anything really, but I think, it felt like a place where, as a viewer, it can be something a little bit more than just like a couple going on vacation. Ideas of with the bullfight, and there being like themes of life and death, uh, and it being a border town, and there being a lot of like political implications to that. Like it just felt like, as a viewer, you could maybe kind of pick apart other elements that are kind of happening behind the scenes. It's also just like a big tourist destination, and I think there's something really interesting to me about tourist places that like have a lot of history through tourism. Yeah, yeah, because I like grew up in like tourist destinations, so I think that was a piece of it too. Yeah, I don't know if I really answered the question, but that was
Well enough for
context.
me. So the I think there's some really cool things in there too about just part of the way you approach documentary, which is different than how you might readily approach some narrative filmmaking, like scripted stuff, and just like saying, hey, let's put these two together and let's see what happens. It is unscripted, and even recognizing that there are potential themes there without forcing any type of, or even, whether it's forcing, even really constructing a message out of it. I think that's a really, when you're approaching documentaries, is there anything that you've done where you let it happen like that and it surprises you while you're making it and maybe shifts the way that you end up shaping it in the editing room?
With any have I ever been surprised where the film changed while I'm making it?
Well, like you said,
That
you weren't really trying to promote any particular message, but there's elements there that people can draw from. Okay, and maybe whether you're trying to get the audience to come to any particular way of thinking, you may affect the way that people view the world. Have you ever, in the process of making a documentary, changed the way that you view something that was part of the subject of your work?
Well, I mean, I think in general, documentary for me is like such a beautiful art form, and I a bit of I don't know, it's kind of a complicated and beautiful like landscape for cinema, I think, and I think it's like this very rich thing that you can kind of do anything with. And with documentary, I think there's kind of this misconception that there's like you almost believe that it's like real, like what you're seeing is real, and like there is absolutely no like messing with it, and I don't know. I kind of like the idea of like trying to achieve that level of authenticity, even though like ultimately every decision is being like made by me and who I'm making the film with. Um, and like I'm like really like the films that I love are the films like I mean there's plenty of documentaries that are on a mission to like change the world. And I think when you think about documentaries, you think like, oh, this is it's like Blackfish or something that's gonna like change the way people think about things and has this like mission and it's like this journalistic sort of endeavor to like educate and inform people. And I don't think about it in a way. I think about it much more like this is it's like making a narrative film, but you are much more of a journey, and you maybe have like a lot of ideas going in, and then you like allow yourself to adapt and change. I think there's kind of a beauty to um, you know having to roll with the punches and having to like change on the go and like relying on instinct more than pre-planned things. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling. I don't know where I was going with
No,
that. I don't know if I'm answering.
it's a thread that goes on, but I think in a way with documentaries, there's it's cool to hear you compare your approach with the approach that a lot of other people take with the art form. One thing that I've done some documentary filmmaking, like not enough to really, it's not what I do. I have some experience with it, but one of the things that always like fascinated me about some documentaries is figuring like the people making them trying to understand when they figured out it was supposed to end. Like because you're
Mm.
real life doesn't end, right? Like, I mean, like people die, but like the world goes on. And sometimes you have a documentary that, like even the one, the short here, where it's like they go to Mexico and they, people can watch and see how it goes, and there's a logic to it. Um, do you ever have a hard time figuring out how a documentary will end? Because the story's often like happening while you're there. It might not have
Yeah.
a satisfying resolution, but maybe that's not the point. Like but how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's like a circumstantial thing. Certain documentaries are pretty easy to figure out, like this one. And part of the reason why we liked this idea was sort of, okay, we can shoot it in a day and a half. It's like my parents go to Tijuana and they do like this range of activities, and then they go home. And it like begins when they arrive and it ends when they leave. And like it's a closed loop. And I think a lot of like especially if you're doing like a verite documentary, having a sort of um, having an end, a built-in ending, is always like super beneficial. That's why there's like, you know, Spellbound and anything with like a competition element. I think sports documentaries are almost always like amazing because it's like built-in beginning, middle, and end. It's like they start the season or start the game, and then like all this stuff happens, and then they win or they lose. Like it's a closed loop, and you get like complete structure to it. But then there's a lot of documentaries that like, yeah, you're filming with somebody about their life, and like you don't know if their life begins like when they, you know, graduate college or when they, have their first kid, or maybe that's the beginning of the film. Um, like I was just editing a film. I just finished editing a film called Last Year of Darkness, that was directed by one of my closest friends, and it's about like the underground rave scene in China. So we had like five characters in the film that are all just sort of navigating their lives and different things are happening, and that was super challenging to figure out. Like, okay, when do we how do we end each person's story? Like, how does the story really end? So what we ended up doing was like kind of removing ourselves from each individual's like life story because yeah, like you said, like life just keeps going. Like we're just sort of like witnessing this sort of slice of their life that doesn't have any really. Like they just kind of keep living their life. But we had this sort of metaphorical structure, which was like right adjacent to their like main party hub, where they would like sort of their sanctuary to sort of express themselves was the construction of a new subway line, which is uh, without going too nitty gritty, and we don't in the film. It's sort of like it's basically a metaphor for like, the progress that's kind of pushing their way of life, away. So as the film progresses, the subway is like gets closer and closer to being finished, and at the end of the film, you see the subway line like this sterile, beautiful, perfect looking, utopian subway has kind of crushed their little tiny sanctuary that is filled with graffiti and hooking up and partying. So yeah, I feel like it's often very tricky to figure these things out, but yeah, you have to find out a way to sort of give some structure to things that maybe don't have structure, or find a film that is has a structure built into the narrative.
Absolutely. So, another question that I'd love to ask you is just a lot of people when they get into film and video, it a lot of them it's because they saw a movie, right? Like
Mm.
when people want to be a filmmaker, a lot of the time it's, oh, I saw a movie and now I want to do that. Okay, but documentary filmmakers I found often have a different route that they take to get to their passion. And maybe it is to see documentary film, but what was it that uh, got you to be a documentary filmmaker? How'd you get to that?
Um, well, I went to film school, and then I wanted to be like a Steven Spielberg when I was in high school. So I went to film school, and then my freshman year, I remember taking a writing class, and I would like write these scripts that were trash, and feeling like this isn't. I wanted to make it feel real. Like I wanted it to feel like real life, or be like, just feel authentic. And then, the following semester, I like took a documentary class, and it just like blew me away. I was like, oh yeah, this is like what I was like, oh, I don't have to like make up all this stuff. I can just like capture what's already existing. And it's also a great medium because there's so many soft. It's such like a intersection of so many different skills. Like you can't just be like great visually. You have to be great, like a great storyteller. You also have to be like somebody that people can connect with. You have to like be excited to like meet new people and like learn new stories and travel. And I felt like the I was just really inspired by like what documentary basically like forces you to do, which is to like learn about the world, learn about people, get to know them, and like become friends, and like, build connections that you would never otherwise meet. You would never meet these people in any other scenario, and it like becomes this very special and beautiful thing. And kind of ties back into the like celebrating people. Just gives you a perspective of the world that is like so much bigger, and like it's a very humbling medium. And yeah, so I took these classes in college. I was like, oh shoot, this is what I'm going to be doing. This is this is what I've been searching for. And then made a lot of bad movies in college, and you learn and you get better. I'm still making bad movies and trying to get better, and yeah, and then just doing a bunch of other weird stuff along the way, because I think like it's weird how like other weird interests will intersect with documentary. It's like um, I like painting, and then I'll like meet somebody, and I'm supposed to film with them, and then I find out that they like painting too, and we talk for 45 minutes about watercolor, and things like, and you just like other things just kind of end up becoming useful. Um, so yeah.
So let's talk about painting for a second then. Do you watercolor? Do you ever paint with oils?
I do, yeah. Um, yeah, I've just started, like probably like a year ago, started painting oil paintings, and that's really fun. But it's a lot more effort because you have to like set it all up.
Hmm.
It's like half an hour just to like get it set up, and then like another hour to mix the paints. And you know, usually it's like hard to finish a painting in a day. Like often takes like multiple days and stuff. And watercolor is nice because you can just like whip it out and do one in 10 minutes and be done, and that's it.
When
um,
do you mostly do still lifes, landscapes, portraits?
I mean, all of the above. A lot of like little people, um, some landscapes. Yeah, probably mostly people, I would think.
Hmm.
But I don't know. Like right here's some flowers. It's a little oil painting of flowers.
Oh, there we go.
Looks terrible on the screen.
It's on it's on a page.
It's like old German book that a friend gave me. Just did a little painting on it.
Well, that's good. Well, yeah, I think it's great when artists, you know, at the very least dabble in a bunch of other mediums because it can inform all the work across the board. When I when I took some painting classes when I was in art school, it taught me a lot about light, like just like how just colors will reflect off of clothes and everything. Like it just really opened my eyes to the textures of the world around me. I still have a couple of
Yeah.
canvases that I'm hoping to pull out at some point in the future. I'm one of those people that I've got a closet full of art supplies for whether it's painting or metalworking or beadwork or leatherwork or whatever. It's like I've got all this stuff, and every once in a while I'll pull something out. I'll be like, I'm taking a break from editing. I'm gonna, make a necklace or something. But that's fantastic. So, at as a documentary filmmaker, do you have any documentaries that you particularly enjoy?
Oh man, so many. Gosh, I have a list. I have a big long list. Um, yeah. Let's see. I mean, one of the films that really like opened my eyes to like what, because I feel like, yeah, everybody has these ideas, and myself included, when I was in college, of like, oh, documentaries, and I think about like History Channel documentaries and like, you know, nature documentaries, and that's kind of what I think of documentaries. And then I saw this film called Sweetgrass in college, and that kind of changed my life because it was like different from everything I had seen. And it basically follows these cowboys as they're herding sheep across, like, the mountains of Montana, and it's just that's what it is. Like, there's no interviews, there's no, I don't think there's music. It's all like, but the sound design is like so rich, like that adding music would feel almost criminal, and it like really transports you to this like, environment in a way that I had never seen. Uh, and that was like a pretty important film. And then I watched a bunch of like Richard Weiss documentaries. He's sort of like one of the godfathers of like cinema verite filmmaking, um, and a whole bunch of he makes like a film every year. Like, I think he's still making films. Uh, Actually, he had a film that premiered this year, and he's like 89 or something. He's like
Wow.
super old. Um, but his movies like always blow me away. Um, there's a filmmaker named Michael Glauwager, who is an Austrian filmmaker who passed away a number of years ago. But he made a triptych of films about like working class people. So the first one's called Working Man's Death. It follows all of these different sort of low income, high danger jobs in different places in the world. And then there's one called Mega Cities, which is about like people in cities. And then there's one that's called Whore's Glory, which is about sex workers. And the three films together, I think, are very much a masterpiece. And I don't know, I could keep going, but those are some top ones that jump to my mind.
Well, that's some good
Oh,
recommendation.
also,
Oh yeah,
Camera Person's maybe my favorite documentary.
camera
Now that I think,
person.
Kirsten Johnson. Yeah, Kirsten Johnson, who I just met in Amsterdam. I was so like, you know, I was so nervous. I saw her and I was like, I have to say something. And I like went up to her and I was like, "Hi, are you Kirsten Johnson?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "I'm a huge fan of your films." She made this film called Camera Person, which you think any of the films, if you were gonna like go out of your way to watch any of these films, I'd probably recommend that one the most. And yeah, that film's great.
Well, I'm glad that I've got some recommendations because I make it a point to watch things that people recommend to me when I interview them. And there's so much I want to talk with you about. Like, I'd love to talk with you more about like Amsterdam because I spent some time there as well. It's an incredible city, and I spent more time in Rotterdam, which is sort of like it's less popular of a place to go, but it's awesome and all that. But I want to finish up with talking about your short documentary. Was it got the Vimeo Staff pick? Was that the first time you got a Vimeo Staff pick? Well, first off, congratulations. And also, when did you find out about that? Like, did they send you an email? Did it just appear on your, like, how, and what was that like?
Shoot, I don't know if I remember how it all happened. I don't know if we sent it to them or if they just found it. Um, but yeah, that was cool. I think it was the first. That's the first one of something I've directed. I've like worked on several that I didn't direct, but yeah, that was nice. That was cool. Love. Shout out to Vimeo Staff picks. You're great.
Well, fantastic. All right. Well,
Yeah, I
congratulations
don't
on
know.
that.
I honestly don't remember. I can look it up, but I can't remember if we sent it to them or if they just found it.
Well, that's still great. Like that's it's cool to see. I love going through the staff picks and just seeing like what gets recommended through that, and it's always cool to meet someone who's like on that list and stuff. So that's awesome, and I think we're pretty much close up on the time here that I said we'd go till. So thank you very much for your time and talking with me. It's been a pleasure. I love hearing your stories. Can't wait to watch Camera Person in particular. And yeah, if you're ever in Pittsburgh, come on by the studio and we'll show you what we got going on here and everything. But it's been cool talking to you.
Nice. Yeah, I really want to go to Pittsburgh. I've been filming with Damar Hamlin, the football player from the Bills,
Hmm.
and he's from Pittsburgh, and he talks about it all the time. So
Oh,
he
that's
loves
great.
it.
I've got a
So
bunch
I
of
really
friends
want
up in
to.
Buffalo too. So yeah, if you're ever in the area, it's not even that far from Buffalo. So, but yeah, let me know if you're up here, and we'll get dinner or something like
Yeah,
that.
right on. Yeah, if you're ever in LA, hit me up.
I will. Thanks for that.
Sweet. Thanks, Peter. That was awesome.
Well, everybody, thanks a lot for joining us and pretending to share time on this podcast, which was recorded at an earlier point. But hopefully, it made you forget about time for a while and enjoy a couple of cool stories from some people who just like film and video. So we'll catch you next time. We'll be here, and if we don't see you for a little while, it's okay. The door's always open. Everybody, bye bye. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you want to start your own podcast, why wait? Reach out to us at StudioME.me, and I hope you hear me again soon.